right, you guys, it's episode 70 of Inner Demons, and without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out. I just put a video out on the Mexican Mafia, the latest story on the Mexican Mafia. I'm going to try to run this Inner Demons for you guys. It might not be a long one, but at least I'm going to run something so that you guys will have this next video. Anyway, so I was listening to episode 69, and like I told you guys, we just got indicted. We just got indicted, and you know, we all knew back there in ADSEG that indictment was coming. It was something that was being floated around to the attorneys. They all have a way of finding out. The legal community, they all work together. Even the private attorneys, they work with the district attorneys. They work with the public pretenders, the alternates. So we knew we were going to get indicted. When the day came when we actually were all brought down to the courtroom, you know, it was, like I said, it was a big spectacle. They walked us down there one by one. And, you know, we got down there, we heard, you know, the charges. We all got appointed different attorneys. They brought everybody else in off the street, and that's what it was. So now I told you guys in the last episode, basically what had happened is when I heard that there was phone calls in the court, you know, when I talked to my attorney inside the courtroom, it was at that point, it was imperative that I got an iPad and that I start listening to those phone calls ASAP. Because I was concerned about those phone calls coming out that I made during the first 3 weeks when I hit the jail. When I was in the observation cell, when I was kicking, I was going through everything. I was worried about those. Honestly, to be honest with you, this was almost 2 years after those calls were made. I had forgot about them. It was like there's no reason for me to even be concerned about them because it was a private conversation or many private conversations that happened during the first 3 weeks that I hit the jail in 2004. So I had forgot about them. Once I got my feet back under me, I got my bearings back. And, you know, at that time, I was pretty much at peace with the fact that I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison. I told you guys, you know, once I got back to ADSEG, the morale, you know, I started to feel that morale being back against the fellas again. I already knew that it was a life case. By then I was, you know, accepting of the fact that I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And, you know, from there, we were just continuing to sink deeper and deeper. We didn't care. We were making phone calls. We were catching cases because we all knew that we were pretty much going to get life cases. At least that's what we thought. They trumped this case up so much that even my co-defendants, a lot of them thought that they were going to get life. And you've seen what most of my co-defendants ended up getting. Most of them got probation. If you guys went to my community, you guys can see that I posted a couple of reports that showed, you know, once the case was adjudicated and everybody got sentenced, most of them got 3 years formal probation. So, you know, none of my co-defendants ended up staying in that county jail for no more than, except for me and Joel Beta, no more than a couple of years. They were all gone. And when all my co-defendants left, I was still in ADSEG or still, you know, in a part of the jail where I was still active. I was still doing my thing. You know, I never burned any of my co-defendants. I never went in there and talked about any of my co-defendants. None of that ever happened. Although people were speculating that that was happening, none of my co-defendants ended up going to trial. None got testified against, none of that. But I posted that paperwork so you guys could see it for yourselves. And there's a reason why. Later on, you're going to understand it. You're going to understand some of the things that I did. And, you know, I went in there with a plan. It wasn't like I was just, you know, shooting reckless or aiming reckless. I knew what was going on. I was conscious of it. I had been there almost 10 years. So at some point, my choices were limited, but I still had a plan. And you're going to understand that. So anyways, you know, I go out to an attorney visit. My attorney comes up. I had emphatically expressed to him that I needed an iPod. I needed an iPod. I needed to see the grand jury transcripts. You know, I wanted to know who it was that was testifying against us and how bad it was based on what was said in those transcripts. Who testified, how bad it was, the cops that testified, you know, everything would have been in those transcripts. So, you know, I get called out first. I was the first one to get an attorney visit. I was the first one to get an iPod. Out of all my co-defendants down there in ADSEG, the other three, at that time it was Pony, Joe Abeda, and Cyclone. Sykes from Goshen. So I was the one that got all the paperwork and everything first. And again, my attorney, he went and he got a court order. So as soon as I got back to the cell, the homies were on their doors. You can imagine they wanted to know what was up just as bad as I did. They wanted to know how bad it was. They wanted, their whole thing was the transcripts. That's what they were focused on. B, what are the transcripts saying? But I had put the transcripts on my bunk and I started listening to the phone calls, the iPod, because that's what was more important to me. I wasn't worried about nothing else but the phone calls. If the phone calls would have never been on there, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be talking to you. There would have never been no issues. We would end up fighting our case, and whatever would have happened in the end would have happened. If I would have got struck out, or if I would have ended up, getting struck out, catching a life case, and then beating it on appeal, which was very possible based on the last episode I told you guys about. They reamed me on that search warrant. I had them beat. You guys, I'm not going to go through every step by step. Again, I explained it. I think I articulated enough to where you guys could understand it, even if you're not familiar with the law. They messed up every step of the way. There's no reason why the judge shouldn't have said, you know what, he's probably guilty, but based on the law and what I'm bound to uphold, I gotta throw this case out. But again, it's politics, and there's a case. That case was just too big. I was too big of a catch for them to do that. That's bottom line. That's what it was. So, anyways, I get back to the cell. I'm listening to the phone calls, and I want to say on my iPod there was somewhere between 15 and 1,600 phone calls. There were more, but most of the phone calls that were on my iPod, my attorney basically got me all of mine instead of downloading all my co-defendants and all the the recordings and all that. He wanted to just get me my phone calls, and then later on he would download the rest if I wanted them. But because that was my priority. He understood what was going on. So I'm going through them and I'm telling the homies, yeah, man, I'll go through the paperwork. Let me just hear some of these calls real quick. You know what I mean? So I'm listening to the calls, and they're like, B, come on, bro. Don't listen to me cupcake with my girl, man. I'm like, man, they're bullshitting. But I'm like, don't nobody want to hear you guys cupcaking with your girls, man. Let's get this straight right now. And this is something I try to throw out. The private phone calls with our ladies, where we're just talking to our ladies, let's leave those, alone. There's no reason why we need to listen to each other cupcake on the phone with our ladies. Those are private moments anyway. Family, that kind of stuff with respect. I'm not going to listen to you guys. The stuff that's relevant, the phone calls where people are talking business or things are being discussed and that are actually being reflected in the police reports, those are the things that, I'm going to focus on. But I'm not going to listen to none of you guys. So I'm going through all the phone calls. I'm starting to feel optimistic because I wasn't getting nothing. And I found like the beginning where, the phone calls were in sequence. So they started from the beginning, from when I came into the jail all the way up until, the present time to when we got indicted. So I'm listening to everything and I'm listening and I don't hear nothing. And I'm like, man, I'm lightweight celebrating like that was a victory for me. But I wasn't, going to count my chickens just yet because there was a lot of phone calls on there and they could have been jumbled, mixed up. So I'm going through them, and bam, I catch one and I listen to it. And, let me try to articulate this the best way I can. I'm clean now. My mind is back on the right track. I got my feet under me. And when I listened to these phone calls, I had to tell myself, you know what, listen to them without prejudice. Listen to them as if you were listening to somebody else. Take yourself out of the moment for a minute. You're not listening to yourself. You're listening to somebody else, and react how you would react if you were listening to those phone calls like that. Like if I was listening to somebody else talk. And when I started listening to them, I was discouraged. I was like, how am I going to come out of something like this? How am I going to explain talking like this? Because, if if the homies, if the fellas, if the NF gave two shits about my wife and her condition, her dying, then maybe I would have felt a little bit more optimistic about the situation. But the bottom line is, if you got family that are dying, like I had, they don't care about that. The bottom line is we're educated, we're taught to think a certain way. This belief system is instilled within us, and we're supposed to uphold that in any given situation. It does not matter that my wife is dying. If you try to comfort her, or if I was trying to console her, and that's what I was saying, they still wouldn't have accepted that. You have no business saying what you said to her on the phone. She's trying to get me, my mom was at that point trying to get me to cooperate. She's trying to get me to cooperate. My girl at that point, she was being quiet about it because she understood my position. My mom was the one that was more vocal about it. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna really go down and go down with all these guys? We're the ones that have been there for you. We're the ones that send you canteen money. We're the ones that accept all your phone calls. You know what? Matter of fact, if you're gonna sacrifice yourself and you're gonna be stupid enough to spend the rest of your life in prison, you're gonna leave your wife out here while she's dying, and you're gonna turn your back on us, don't even call here no more. That can be your family. Don't even call here no more. So you need to make a choice. And I understood my mom to an extent. I know she didn't understand my politics. I know she didn't understand that lifestyle, and I didn't expect her to. But at the same time, I understood that this was a mother that was broken over. She seen a son that was in a bad situation. She knew I was in a bad situation, that I was looking at life. She knew that no matter what I said to my girl, no matter how much I try to downplay it, my mom, she'd been to the joint. She's streetwise. She knows what's up. She knew that this wasn't just a petty case that was going to go away. They weren't going to hit me with no 5, 6, 7 years and let me go on about my way. They're going to stretch me out on this case. This was going to be the one right here that was going to bolt the doors. She knew that. And she told me that. She told me, regardless of what you keep telling, Vicky, she's like, you're in a lot of trouble. They're gonna make an example out of you. They're not just gonna, give you a couple years. You need to stop and think about what you're doing. You got one chance at life. If you drop the ball and you make the wrong choice, I guarantee you 5, 10, 15 years down the line, when you're an old man in that concrete box, at some point, you're going to have an epiphany. You're going to have a light bulb is going to go off, and you're going to be like, man, I should have did things different while I had the chance. But once that's done, once they bolt those doors, once you get that L, it's a wrap. It's over. You're not going to get a second chance. So I would advise you to think about what you're doing. And again, I heard what she was saying, but by then, I had my feet firmly back under me, and I was just basically just like, it was going in one ear and out the other. I respected her opinion, obviously, as my mother, and I loved her. Me and my mom, we were close. That was my dog, man. But, again, I was the type of individual that, the way that I was looking at it was, man, I'm not going to start dumping on people because, shit got too crazy. I'm looking at life now. This is something I always knew would come. I just wished it would come later than sooner. But that, now that the time is here, that I have to hunker down and deal with it. That's the bottom line. I'm not going to start dumping on people and start selling out and trying to get out of my situation, save my ass, and start throwing other people under the bus. That was never my intention. If it was, again, you guys need to understand this. If that was my intention, I would have done it as soon as they kicked my door and as soon as they propositioned me. And they did, the same day that they raided me. They're already the handcuffs barely went on, and they're already like, we know you're a major player. You can, do a lot of damage. You need to, think about it, and we can help you, and we'll get you there, and wow. And I told him, you know what? That's not even that's not even in the cards. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to talk to you guys. I told you guys that everything that you found at my house was mine. I already buried myself, but I'm not talking about nobody else. So You know, if it was my intention, why wouldn't I have done it as soon as they got me? Why wouldn't I have done it sometime during that first year when they kept coming up? Why wouldn't I have done it during the second year? Sometime, you know, all the times that they kept trying to come up. Every time I go out to an attorney visit or something, they would know because class would somehow give them a heads up and they'd run up to the jail and they try to catch me in the hallway. Hey, what's up, boxer? You know, the window of opportunity is closing. They would try to proposition me. And I kept telling them, man, you guys are wasting your time. Quit trying to come up here and quit trying to talk to me. And I was being forthright about it. I had nothing to hide. I kept telling the homies, these cats just came up and they just tried to proposition me. And nobody was surprised because they were doing that to everybody. Basically, their thing is whoever they could get to get on that bus, they were going to be the ones that had that best deal. And, you know, the ones that got on it later would get a deal, but not the best. And the ones that got left behind would get left behind. So, you know, the last point when, you know, they threatened me when they came up and did that search in the jail, I knew what they were telling me when they said, you know, if you don't do it, something's going to hit you. And I knew that they were talking about an indictment. But again, if I had any intentions on doing it, it would have been right there or sooner. But that wasn't my intention. You know, I told them, do what you got to do. So that's what they did. They indicted me. So anyway, you know, I'm in the cell now. I catch one phone call. I catch another one. I catch a third, a fourth, a fifth. There was about 12 phone calls altogether. And, you know, even though I was sick in the ob cell at one point, after like 12 calls, you know, even in the condition I was in, I had finally said, you know what, stop talking about this stuff. You know, I was in an irritable way because I was sick, but now I was telling my mom, stop, you're gonna get me caught up. Now I started to, you know, as more time went on, I started to get my focus back. I started to think about, you know, the situation I was in and the things that I was doing. So me being more conscious about it now, you know, I shut those conversations down at that point. And they never again happened until, you know, way later on in the game. But, you know, I stopped all that. Anyways, you know, at some point after I look at all the calls and I'm completely discouraged. I'm discouraged. Like my morale's broken now. You know what I mean? I'm back in a bad place. Even though I'm on the tier with the homies, I'm like, man, this is all bad. This is going to be an uphill battle trying to explain why I said the things that I said. Because of who I was, because of, you know, the status that I had, because I was a leader, that's going to fall on deaf ears. I was held to a higher standard because I was a leader. They're going to say, you knew better. You know, you're not some young NR member that's been around a couple of years. You've been around. You know better. So me trying to explain it, it was going to be an uphill battle. People were going to be pushing against me. People were going to be gunning for me. But no matter what, I wasn't going to check out. It was never an option, and it's just not in my DNA. You are going to have to stab me, kill me, get me off that tier, do something in front of the COs in order to get me off that tier. Never would I ever think about riding a kite and telling the CO, get me off the tier, or, you know, anything like that. And you'll see, once those lines were drawn, it was on, you know, it was on. So before I get to that, you know, even though I was discouraged, I still kind of had to play it off like, you know, that everything was all good. And they're like, what's on the phone calls, B? Was it, oh man, it's just nothing, bro. I'm just listening to some calls I had with my lady, bro. That's all it is. So now they want to know what's in the transcripts. So I'm going through the transcripts. I'm reading them. I'm trying to find out now who the hell told on us. So basically, when I go through the transcripts, you know, I get to a part where, boom, I start to see a name. And the name at first, there's not a Picasso that goes with it. There's just a last name, Rodriguez. So I'm like, Rodriguez. Why did that keep jumping at me? Then I seen the moniker Conejo, and I'm like, motherfucker, bro, it's Conejo. So basically what happened is during the time when we were trying to press Conejo to give up that money on the streets, when Twist was trying to contact him, when Twist was like, hey, the homie in the county jail, he's got a deadline for you. You need to pay that back. When Joe had conversations with Conejo, he started to threaten him in so many words. Hey, you got to pay that money. If you don't pay that money by a certain time, a certain time frame, you know how it goes, bro. You've been around. Conejo was a hermano. He's been around. He knows what time it is. So, while they're pushing against him, there came a point in time where somebody communicated to me that, he tried to holler at my girl, he disrespected her, something like that. And it didn't have nothing to do with her. It was the fact that he wasn't getting the money to us. And, at one point I started to feel like he was playing keep away. So at that point, I told Twist in so many words, get what you can from him, but he's done. Just get what you can from him. And once, it seems like he's playing games with you and he's not trying to meet you or he's not trying to pay the rest of that money, don't trip, bro, because we got something for him. But again, this was all said, it was communicated on the phone. Who's listening? These cops that are working this case. And what they did was they track him down on the streets. They track Conejo down and they're like, look, dude, so we know you were functioning under Boxer. We know that they've been reaching out to you in the county jail, that through Twist, we got him wrapped up. We know that Joe, you talked to Joe Beta, and we know that they gave you a deadline to pay this money back. Dude, you're already done. Boxer already put a green light on you. We heard it. He communicated that to Twist. He basically told Twist to get what he could from you, and that after that, something was going to happen to you. So, the way that they played it was they were trying to flip him and they were using scare tactics, and it worked. It worked. They boxed him in. They showed him some phone calls, or they let him hear some phone calls. And, they painted out this big picture. They told him, if you don't cooperate, that's cool. It's on you. But we'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to end up getting indicted with the rest of them. So it was at that point that he was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. What do you want me to do? They told him they put him in, witness protection. They move him out of the state, change his name, but that he'd be required to testify against us, once they convened the grand jury. So that's what he did. He went in there and he laid it on thick. I mean, he said stuff that he didn't have to say, in my opinion. And he made sure that I was good and buried. When it came to me and the exchange that he had with the prosecutor, it was obvious just by reading the testimony and the line of questioning that they were making sure that the nails were deeply embedded in my coffin, that I was done. That, and I also got a feel of, where the DA was going with this. And he wasn't playing. His thing was like, that guy's a bad guy. He's, they were bringing up stuff that was happening in San Quentin, that, there was a guy named Palacios that got cut up pretty bad from San Jose in San Quentin. And, I got blamed for that. They said, at this time, Boxer was in custody and this green light was put on him. For those of you from San Jose that might be watching this, you guys, I'm sure you know about this individual right here. He ended up getting caught up with Huicho. His brother tried to pay $25,000 to clear. I think it was Angel Palacio. His brother tried to pay money to, basically clear his brother. But Huicho collected that money, even though Huicho was in bad standings. He collected that money, he kept it for himself. So, when this guy came to San Quentin, he comes through there, he gets sliced up. I'm talking about carved up bad. They were able to follow a blood trail on the tier to the individuals that did it, because there were footprints in blood everywhere. I mean, they carved them up, something vicious. But, that came up, and a bunch of other things came up from my past and things that I was doing and green lights that I had put on people and situations that I had personally been involved in. And, they spread it on thick. So at the end of the day, Conejo was the main individual that went in there and testified. The only the only one from like my regiment, or the only gang member. Everybody else was, crime scene specialists, or gang intel officers, gang experts, and things like that, cops. He was the only one that went in there and testified as a, as an active gang member. So they put a lot of credibility in him. They gave him a lot of weight. His testimony obviously carried a lot of weight in their eyes, but a lot of it was trumped up. It was over the top. When I read it, I was like, are you serious? A lot of it was just like, when you read it, you're like, man, come on, you guys are doing too much. I mean, basically what they did is they threw a bunch of shit against the wall, and whatever stuck, that's what stuck. Like they say, though, they can indict a ham sandwich. When they convene a grand jury and they run an indictment like this, a grand jury hearing like this, and you have a gang member that comes in, no matter if he's low level, high level, whatever, 9 times out of 10, that's going to stick. And it did. They brought an indictment back against 18 of us, and, it was what it was. But you guys ended up seeing what I put in my community page. You guys ended up seeing the sentences that a lot of these guys drew. They knew they were lower level individuals. Most of them got probation. But what they did is it didn't mean that they weren't, instrumental in functioning out there in the regiment. What they did was they gave them all 3 years formal probation, but they stacked them up on strikes. A lot of these guys didn't have no strikes, but they took 3 years probation with 2 strikes. So once they came back, if they ever came back, they ever caught another felony, it was curtains for them. They were done. Most of them ended up getting 3 years with 2 strikes. There were only a couple guys like Zarate, Eric Zarate, Baby G from Metal Fair. He ended up getting like 12 years. Pony got 16 years. Sykes, I want to say he got anywhere from 4 to 6 years. I mean, everybody else got like probation. Me and Joe were the last ones on my case. We were the last ones, to hold out and to, get ready to take it to trial. We were right there. And that's the thing, too, about getting indicted. When you get indicted, you bypass prelim. You don't get to go to preliminary and all that. You're bound straight over to superior court. And then it's all about pretrial motions from that point on. You jump straight into the thick of it. So, that's where we were at. Anyways, when all this stuff came out, we go through the transcripts, and we're all back there talking about it, and how bad it can be, and the possibilities for like the next month or two. But I'm back there, for the next month, listening to the phone calls. Day in and day out, I'm listening to them, and they're wearing on me. It got to the point to where I became frustrated. I was starting to get frustrated. I was in that cell. Nobody knew what was going on, but I'm in there and I'm listening. I'm like, fuck, I'm upset with myself. How did you allow yourself to do this to you? How did you allow yourself to fall into this right here? Why did you play your hand like this? I understand my girl was sick, but there had to be a better way. So I'm in there beating myself up, and just to hear these 3 talking on the tier, laughing and giggling, it started to wear on me. I started to get mad. I started to feel like, I was miserable. And misery loves company. The fact that they're back there laughing and bullshitting like they ain't got no worries, it started to just get to me, to the point to where one day they're on the tier talking, and I struck up a kite. Well, first, before I got to that point, though, I tried to be forthright about the phone calls. I got at Pony since he was my second in command, and it was a long kite, and I broke everything down from A to Z. And I told him, look, this is what are in the phone calls. This is why. My girl, she's dying. My mom's crazy, but there'll never be nothing there. That's all it was just personal phone calls. But that's all it is, bro. But at that point, I was in full-blown damage control mode. I was trying to explain why, and I was being, honest about it. There was nothing for me to hide. I had never sat down with nobody, never talked to nobody. nothing like that. And I told him, there'll never be nothing that'll ever come out. I'm telling you, this is what happened from the time I got arrested up until now, until the day they brought me into AdSafe. So, when Pony read, he was like, hey, B, you're my boy. I got you, bro. He's like, man, don't trip, bro. It's like, I understand. He understood. My lady she had lupus. He knew she was sick. He knew her. He had a personal, friendship with her at one point. So, that's when I'm in damage control mode. At that point, nobody told me to step down. Nobody said, you need to relinquish your position. I felt like it was the right thing for me to do. I put myself under a cloud of suspicion. So I told them, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and slide back. It's the best thing to do. I don't feel like I should be running this county jail because I put myself under this black cloud, so I'm going to step back. You guys go ahead and figure it out. Put me on freeze, and, let the case play out, and, we'll see how it all works out, man. But, I'm stepping back. I just didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, to try to hold on to the keys, to continue to try to run the jail. And they were, they were okay with that. I want to say Sykes was the one that took over because he was the other NF member there. Joe wasn't an NF member. Pony was just hermano. So, there would be another 3 weeks where I would just continue to listen to the phone calls, and I would sink deeper and deeper into that hole where I was just like, I was frustrated. What's going to happen when I get up to the Bay? How are they going to, interpret this? How is it going to be, looked at? And I knew, it was all bad. I was being honest with myself, but at least I was, I was willing to accept whatever punishment. I was willing to accept my licks. Look, I'm not gonna fold on nobody, but if I got that coming for just talking like that to my girl, then I got that coming, and I'll take it. I'll take it like a man. I'm not checking out. You're fucking crazy. There's not a individual in this county jail that can make me check out. Do I want this to be the end of my career? Hell no. Everything that I've done to get, to where I'm at, for nothing? Absolutely not. I'm ready to, do what I got to do, take this to trial, take whatever I got coming to me. And whatever it is, I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with it. At this time, my girl, she wasn't talking about, me cooperating or nothing like that. She was okay with what I was telling her. Hey, let the case play out. We haven't even been to, we haven't even been to none of my motions yet. So let's just see what happens. It's gonna be a process. It's gonna take some time. But I mean, damn, let it play out in court, before you start freaking out. Anyways, again, I want to emphasize to you guys, I can't emphasize to you guys enough how much I listened to the phone calls back there. And it was just those 15 phone calls. Those calls, I just kept listening to them. Damn, is there a way I can, explain this? And I even passed my iPod over to these guys and let them listen to them. Like, look here, go ahead and listen. I didn't have anything to hide. There was nothing to hide. It was all going to come out anyway, but I was forthright about this stuff even before this point right here. I had told them, in the first 6 months when these guys kept trying to come up and talk to me, I was putting it out there. These guys keep trying to talk to me. But again, they were trying to talk to all my co-defendants, most of them. So that didn't come as a surprise to anybody. They knew that they were trying to, get somebody to flip. Anyways, I know this is a quick one, but yeah, the viewer that always says, man, I hate when you say those words, that this is a good time to end this one. I'm sorry, man, but I got to do it to you. I put out another video earlier on the Mexican Mafia. That video will be dropping in the morning along with this one, but I got to close this one up right here because, what happens from this point on, it's a part of the next episode. I already got it mapped out. So, I'm going to leave it at that. I just at least wanted to get you guys to that point to where I listened to the phone calls, went through the grand jury transcripts and, you know, found out that it was Conejo that was telling. And, you know, the other thing is, it's like from that point on, when we got the transcripts and I read them, you know, I literally read them over the tier to these guys, sent some to them so that they could read some. But like the first day, they were like, they wouldn't wait. They were like, start reading that shit, B. So when we all started reading them, that's when we were like, you know what, fuck it, man. We're going to the feds. They're gonna bury us. We're looking at 100 years. You know what I mean? We were looking at it, you know, in the worst case scenario. It looked bad on paper. Even the police reports. Anybody that read the police reports, I believe even one of the viewers that looked at the police reports that I put in the community were like, damn, it just sounded like they were just trumping this up. And that's those police reports that I shared with you guys, those were mild. The other ones were like, come on, man, take some of that off. Like, you know what I mean? They're doing too much. Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this one to a close, but I will get you out another Inner Demons, if not tomorrow, the next day. I know how much some of you have been following the Inner Demon, you know, series. It's a series that's now up to 70 episodes. So I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm not going to lose interest in it or, you know, start neglecting it because I'm on to something else or, you know, I'm more focused on other videos. I'm going to continue this series. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to get you guys there. I want you guys to understand everything that happened. Trust me, it's important to me. Anyways, with that being said, this is your boy B. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think about, you know, this episode. Let me know what you think about everything that happened. Keep the constructive criticism coming. Like I said the other day, I'll try to get a live out in the next couple of days. See if I can get Sandman on here with me. I got some other things that I'm going to be talking about in the next week or two that I've been telling you guys about. That's coming up too. All these things are lining up and they're happening at the same time. But anyways, with that being said, this is your boy B. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'm out.